Have you ever wondered why you remain tethered to a relationship that systematically diminishes you? You recognize the pervasive unhappiness, the relentless drain on your energy, the seemingly immutable nature of the other person, and yet you remain. You've attempted to break free, vowed that this time would mark a definitive departure, but an invisible force consistently draws you back. The question begs to be answered. Why does even the profound discomfort fail to propel you toward liberation? The answer doesn't reside within the other individual. It isn't a testament to their manipulative prowess, stripping you of your decisiveness. It isn't an unyielding, unwavering love that binds you inextricably. It isn't the lingering memory of past happiness or the elusive promise of its future return. The harsh truth is that the core issue lies within what this relationship has unearthed within you, the patterns it has solidified, the dormant vulnerabilities it has activated. Toxic relationships transcend mere arguments, deceit, and manipulation. They delve into the realm of unconscious behavior, unhealed wounds of the past, the paralyzing fear of solitude, the relentless craving for external validation, and the self-perpetuating cycle of uncertainty, intertwined with fleeting hope. You are not imprisoned by the person themselves. Rather, you are ensnared by the emotions the relationship evokes within you. Consequently, simply ending the relationship is often insufficient. You might succeed in establishing physical distance, yet an inner voice persists, replaying cherished memories, rationalizing harmful behaviors, and fueling the persistent question of whether another attempt is warranted. The root of the problem lies deeper than the surface of the relationship. It's the psychological stronghold forged, a bond so potent that it distorts your perceptions, leading you to tolerate behaviors you once vehemently opposed. But enough is enough. This discourse is not designed to evoke feelings of guilt or inadequacy. It is not intended to portray you as weak-willed or deficient. Instead, its purpose is to illuminate the underlying dynamics at play, to provide clarity, because understanding paves the way for regaining control, and only through control can true liberation be achieved. Therefore, listen intently. If you harbor a sense of entrapment, a feeling of being unable to leave despite knowing you should, this exploration is specifically for you. Ultimately, you will grasp the repetitive nature of this cycle and, more importantly, acquire the tools to break free from its grip. Let's embark on this journey. Why do some individuals appear to repeatedly stumble into destructive relationships, while others effortlessly extricate themselves and never look back? The differentiating factor lies in how we learn to experience love. Love is not a passive occurrence. It's an actively shaped, developed, and conditioned response. To comprehend why you might feel deeply connected to someone who inflicts pain, it's imperative to examine the concept of attachment. From infancy, we seek connection as a fundamental need. In our formative years, our brains are meticulously programmed to link safety and well-being with the manner in which we receive affection. If we mature in an environment characterized by readily available, healthy love and care, we learn that relationships are inherently safe and trustworthy. Conversely, if affection is intertwined with coldness, rejection, inconsistency, or even abuse, our minds learn a different lesson: that love is precarious, unpredictable, and something we must relentlessly strive to earn. Within this lies the core of the issue. If your upbringing involved love inextricably linked to pain, Your psyche internalized this dynamic. This means that encountering someone who consistently treats you with kindness may seem uninteresting, artificial, even disingenuous. However, when you encounter someone who doles out affection in measured doses, someone who alternates between showering you with love and subsequently ignoring you, your brain recognizes this familiar pattern. It associates this cycle of uncertainty with its learned definition of love. This represents the peril of the emotional snare. You are not merely in love with the individual, you are powerfully attached to what they represent to you. They awaken a deep-seated resonance, a familiar sensation, an unconscious longing to prove that you are worthy, that this time love will prevail, that this time rejection will transform into acceptance. This ultimately leads to one of the most compelling reasons why escaping a toxic relationship proves so difficult: the paralyzing fear of loss. When your attachment is rooted in uncertainty, the prospect of losing that person becomes excruciating, not because you cannot exist without them, but because you feel an overwhelming need to resolve the narrative, to demonstrate your ability to make it work, and to somehow convince this person to bestow upon you the love you've always craved. But here's the unwavering truth: you owe no such demonstration to anyone. This relationship does not serve as a test of your lovability. The problem does not lie within you, nor does the solution reside within the other person. The initial step toward liberation is recognizing the existing reality, which leads us to the subsequent point. If emotional attachment creates this trap, what specifically keeps you immobilized within it? A psychological mechanism operates akin to an addiction, paradoxically rendering the suffering within the relationship seemingly rewarding. This mechanism, known as intermittent reinforcement, holds the potential to unlock the key to breaking this tenacious cycle. Have you ever noticed that despite the immense pain the relationship inflicts, brief moments of seemingly idyllic perfection arise? These fleeting instances occur when the other person embodies precisely who you desire them to be, when the sensation arises that genuine change is finally imminent. You desperately cling to these moments, meticulously reliving every detail, persuading yourself that they represent the true essence of the relationship, and that the remaining challenges are merely surmountable obstacles. But this is not love. It's a manifestation of addiction. The sustaining force behind this addiction lies in a potent psychological phenomenon called intermittent reinforcement. The concept originates from B.F. Skinner's groundbreaking studies on behavior and conditioning. Through experiments involving animals, Skinner discovered that the most effective approach to fostering and maintaining an addiction was to administer rewards unpredictably. Rather than consistently providing food each time a rat pressed a lever, scientists began to offer food sporadically, without a discernible pattern. The outcome was remarkable. The rats became fixated. They repeatedly pressed the lever, driven by an insatiable desire for the next reward, finding themselves unable to cease their actions. Now, transpose the rats with human beings and the lever with your relationship. The underlying dynamic remains strikingly similar. Were the other person consistently cruel, the act of leaving would be considerably easier. However, they strategically provide small, irregular doses of affection, compelling you to persist, perpetually hoping for the subsequent emotional payoff. The truly insidious aspect of this mechanism is its gradual conditioning, leading you to accept increasingly less. Initially, you may have demanded respect, reciprocity, and commitment, but after enduring a protracted cycle of highs and lows, your expectations subtly shift. You begin to accept mere scraps because, deep down, you desperately yearn to relive those fleeting moments of goodness. You convince yourself that with sufficient effort, patience, or self-modification, the other person will eventually revert to their initial idealized state. But that is the essence of the trap. This relationship never revolved around authentic love. It was, instead, centered on control. The toxic individual, whether consciously or unconsciously, understood that maintaining your entrapment necessitated not constant affection, but rather a precisely calibrated dosage of warmth and coldness, carefully engineered to sustain your ongoing pursuit. This explains why leaving inflicts such profound pain, because it represents not merely the termination of the relationship, but the shattering of hope, the cessation of the potential for future transformation. Accepting this harsh reality is painful but necessary, for as long as you continue to engage in this destructive dynamic, your sense of self will gradually erode. You will lose sight of your inherent worth and begin to question your value. You will be slowly conditioned to accept less, to expect less, and ultimately, to be less. Compounding the situation, the other person often perpetuates the belief that you are the source of the problem, dismissing your concerns as exaggerations and denying the validity of your experiences. If you've ever questioned your sanity, feeling as though you might be misinterpreting reality, it's crucial to grasp the subsequent concepts: gaslighting, projection, and emotional manipulation, the insidious psychological weaponry that systematically undermines your perception of reality. If you've ever found yourself grappling with questions like, "Am I exaggerating? Am I the problem?" Or, "Perhaps I'm losing my mind," you've already experienced the debilitating effects of psychological manipulation. Among the various forms of manipulation, few are as devastating as gaslighting. Gaslighting involves deliberately distorting reality to the point where you begin to doubt your own feelings, memories, and even your sanity. It's an extraordinarily effective control tactic because it instills a persistent state of self-doubt, making it increasingly difficult to recognize the abuse and even more challenging to extricate yourself from it. The process typically unfolds as follows. You perceive something amiss in the relationship, perhaps an unsettling behavior, a glaring contradiction, or a blatant lie, and you confront the other person. However, instead of acknowledging responsibility, they twist the narrative and redirect the blame toward you. They accuse you of exaggeration, paranoia, and fabricating problems where none exist. Phrases like, "You always misunderstand everything," "You're being overly sensitive," "That never even happened," "You're simply imagining things," become disturbingly commonplace. Over time, you inevitably begin to question your own judgment. You meticulously replay conversations in your mind, striving to recall specific details and seeking external validation to confirm your feelings. Yet, with each subsequent confrontation, the distortion of reality intensifies. What once appeared undeniably clear now feels shrouded in uncertainty. Consequently, the more you doubt your own perceptions, the more reliant you become on the other person to define what is genuine and what is fabricated. Gaslighting represents merely one tool employed in toxic relationships. Projection constitutes another potent weapon. In this scenario, the individual attributes their own flaws and unacceptable behaviors onto you. If they engage in deceit, they accuse you of being dishonest. If they are unfaithful, they accuse you of infidelity. If they display aggression, they assert that you are provoking them. The most devastating outcome is that the victim internalizes these unfounded accusations, assuming guilt that is not rightfully theirs and carrying an unwarranted emotional burden. The intended outcome of these manipulations extends beyond merely evading responsibility. They aim to induce a state of confusion and profound emotional exhaustion. When you are emotionally depleted, you become more susceptible to control. When your self-esteem is shattered, you are more likely to accept even the smallest gestures of affection as significant rewards. When your perception of reality is distorted, you cease to trust your own instincts and begin to blindly place your faith in the other person. This brings us to a fundamental question. Why do you persist in accepting this treatment? If it's undeniably clear that the relationship is destroying you, why does the fear of leaving continue to exert such a powerful hold? The answer lies within two of the most influential factors that keep individuals entrapped in toxic relationships: the fear of loneliness and the persistent illusion that love can transform someone. Have you ever found yourself thinking, "What if I never find someone else?" Or, "What if no one will ever truly love me?" Have you ever caught yourself believing that with a bit more effort, patience, or self-improvement, this relationship might eventually succeed? If so, you have fallen victim to some of the most compelling reasons why people remain bound to toxic relationships: the fear of loneliness and the illusion of change. The fear of loneliness is not inherently irrational. It's deeply ingrained in our psyche. From childhood, we are taught that solitude is undesirable, something to be avoided at all costs. Society constantly reinforces this notion through various channels. Movies, songs, and social media all convey the message that being loved is our ultimate aspiration, as if being single signifies failure, and the absence of a partner is proof of some inherent flaw. Now, combine that deeply ingrained fear with a relationship that has systematically eroded your self-esteem, a relationship where you've been conditioned to believe that no one else would truly understand you, accept you as you are, or love you in the way this person supposedly does. The consequence is that you convince yourself that leaving would be a mistake, that enduring the negativity is preferable to confronting the possibility of being alone. But what if I were to tell you that what you are experiencing is not a genuine fear of loneliness, but rather emotional withdrawal? Toxic relationships foster a state of dependency akin to addiction. You are not merely attached to the person, you are trapped by the allure of hope. You vividly recall the person they initially presented themselves to be, those moments when everything seemed perfect, and you cling to the belief that with sustained effort, that idealized version of them will resurface. You rationalize the negative behaviors, dismissing them as temporary phases. You latch on to hollow promises and empty words spoken at opportune moments, while disregarding the stark reality of their actions. This is not love. It's the seductive illusion of change. The critical realization is that genuine transformation does not occur simply because you desire it. It doesn't manifest solely through the power of your love. It doesn't materialize from your relentless self-sacrifice. True change stems only from the individual's own recognition of the problem and their sincere commitment to transform. And let's be honest, How many times has this person vowed to change? How many times have you heard empty excuses? How many times have you clung to the hope that this instance would prove different? If nothing changes, it's because this relationship was never destined to change. Accepting this truth is undeniably painful. It signifies relinquishing hope and confronting the emptiness left in the wake of something that has consumed a substantial portion of your life. It means acknowledging that you invested time, energy, and love into something that was never destined to have a future. However, this pain is transient, whereas the pain of perpetuating the relationship is perpetual. However, extricating yourself from a toxic relationship involves more than a simple decision to walk away. If it were that straightforward, you would have already done so. To achieve true liberation, you must sever the emotional connection, reprogram your ingrained thought patterns, and rebuild your sense of self. That is precisely what we will address next. How to break the insidious cycle and initiate the process of emotional detoxification. Have you ever observed that even when you intellectually recognize the destructive nature of the relationship, a part of you still hesitates? Even when the pain reaches an unbearable threshold, a persistent voice whispers, "What if I'm making a mistake?" Or, "What if I never experience anything like this again?" This phenomenon occurs because leaving a toxic relationship transcends mere rational decision-making. Understanding its harmful impact is insufficient. You must fundamentally reprogram the way your brain associates love, validation, and your very identity. You need to embark on a genuine process of emotional detoxification. Indeed, detoxification is necessary because the relationship has functioned akin to a drug. Every fleeting dose of affection served as reinforcement, keeping you firmly entrapped. Each glimmer of hope acted as an addictive stimulus. Now, mirroring the experience of overcoming an addiction, you need to definitively sever this cycle to reclaim your freedom. But how can this be accomplished? How can you finally break this bond that feels unbreakable? Step 1. Complete severance, the implementation of no contact. To achieve genuine healing, maintaining any form of contact is detrimental. This entails refraining from sending or receiving messages, initiating or answering calls, or entertaining the notion of remaining friends. Any interaction with this person reignites the emotional conditioning and pulls you back into the familiar destructive spiral. You might rationalize, what if he or she changes? What if he realizes what he lost? However, the truth remains that if this person possessed the capacity for genuine change, they would have already demonstrated it. If they genuinely valued you, they would not have subjected you to this level of distress. Their feelings are not rooted in regret. Instead, they stem from a fear of losing control over you, and perhaps you contemplate, "But I simply need closure." You don't require closure from them. You already possess all the information you need. The closure you seek is not an answer. It's a final, desperate justification to remain in the relationship. Therefore, sever all ties. Terminate all forms of communication. Block them on your phone and unsubscribe from their social media feeds. Refuse to accept meager offerings. Prepare yourself, because once you definitively sever ties, the emotional withdrawal will hit you with full force. Step 2. Endure the withdrawal without succumbing to relapses. In the initial days following the separation, you will experience a profound sense of emptiness. Your brain has been conditioned to seek this person, to derive a sense of completeness from their presence. Consequently, their absence may feel unbearable. However, this is not genuine longing. It is withdrawal. Your brain will attempt to persuade you to return. You will predominantly recall the positive memories, conveniently overlook the suffering, and entertain thoughts such as, "Perhaps I overreacted." But that is merely your addiction attempting to lure you back. The most effective strategy for navigating this challenging phase involves replacing the old, destructive pattern with a new, constructive one. Fill the void with meaningful activities and engage in a routine that keeps you occupied. Engage in physical exercise, immerse yourself in reading, and spend time with friends who uplift and support you. Above all, avoid romanticizing the past. Create a comprehensive list detailing all the ways this person inflicted pain upon you, and revisit it whenever you are tempted to reconnect. Step 3. Rebuild your sense of self. Toxic relationships erode self-esteem. You have become accustomed to viewing yourself through the distorted lens of the other person. You have been conditioned to believe that you are inadequate, that you are inherently unlovable, and that you must alter your fundamental self to gain acceptance. Now, it's time to reprogram your internal narrative. Begin by asking yourself, who was I before this relationship? What were my passions and interests? What brought me joy and fulfillment? What aspects of myself did I abandon to conform to the relationship? Recovery entails rediscovering yourself, reclaiming your voice, pursuing your desires, and reasserting your autonomy. You do not require a relationship to be complete. This erroneous notion was instilled in you by a society that profits from your insecurities. The reality is that the most profound and transformative love is self-love. That is precisely what we will explore further, because leaving a toxic relationship does not represent the end. It marks the beginning of something far more significant. True liberation is achieved only when you prioritize yourself. A pivotal moment arrives when you must make a decisive choice to persist in self-destruction in the name of a love that was never genuine, or to finally choose yourself. Ultimately, the other person's feelings, promises, and repeated assertions of change are inconsequential. What truly matters is what you are willing to accept for your own life. And perhaps, at this juncture, lingering doubt persists. The inner voice might still whisper, but what if it's different this time? What if I'm exaggerating? What if I never find anyone else? That voice is not your own. It was gradually implanted, reinforced by every meager offering of affection you were conditioned to accept, by every cycle of manipulation that undermined your self-confidence, and by every instance where you subjugated your own well-being to appease someone who never genuinely cared for you. But now you possess knowledge, clarity, and a decisive choice. I must be direct. No external force will rescue you. No unexpected revelation will materialize. No divine intervention will break you free from this destructive cycle. You must make this conscious decision, or you will perpetually repeat this pattern until there is nothing of yourself remaining. That is the inevitable fate of those who remain trapped in toxic relationships. An emotional depletion so profound that they completely lose themselves. They cease to know who they are, what they desire, or what brings them joy. They diminish themselves to assuming a secondary role in someone else's life. When this realization dawns, it may be too late. Therefore, stop. Choose to leave. Choose to break the cycle. Choose to rebuild your sense of self. Do not delude yourself into thinking that this will be effortless. On the contrary, the initial days will be the most challenging. You will experience profound longing and the temptation to return. You will question your decision. However, over time, something remarkable will unfold. The fog will dissipate, and your mind will regain clarity. You will recognize that what you perceived as love was never genuine. You will reconnect with the person you were before the relationship. Then, unexpectedly, you will awaken one day and realize that you are finally free. To reach that point, you must take the initial step. You must make that choice now. So, to wrap things up, remember that you are absolutely worthy of love, respect, and happiness. If you're caught in a cycle of destructive relationships, it's not a reflection of your inherent value, but rather a testament to deep-seated patterns that can be broken. By understanding the power of attachment, intermittent reinforcement, gaslighting, and the seductive illusions that keep us trapped, you're already well on your way to reclaiming your power. This journey of self-discovery and trauma recovery science isn't always easy, but it's essential for cultivating conscious living and lasting well-being. I really hope this information has provided some cognitive clarity and empowered you with some mental health tools. I'm incredibly eager to hear your thoughts, experiences, or any questions you might have. Please feel free to leave a comment below and join the conversation. Let's support each other. And if you found this helpful and want more neuroscience content aimed at self-optimization and emotional intelligence, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching.